All right, welcome. This is Tait Fletcher, Stay Bulletproof with Tait Fletcher. It's our, I think, 8th go at this, and today, earlier, I had the pleasure of going to a cooking class, which is kind of outside of my comfort zone, being that the only thing I really cook is coffee and maybe errant steak or two here and there. But we went to a fabulous cooking class, and it was all paleo driven and of that thinking. And I'm here with Camille now, who taught our class, and she's been kind enough to have a couple glasses of red wine, some wonderful stew that I made that is all paleocentric and delicious, and it was a really fun day so far today. So here we go, and I was really illuminated a lot earlier today with just like how easy it is to have different flavors. Like with my diet generally, I'm pretty simple. Like I don't mind eating just broccoli and steak every day. I don't mind real simplicity in my diet, but to see the ease and everything, and especially when we got into looking at like the beef broth, and hearing Dave Asprey talk about the beef broth and the collagen infused in that, and all the health benefits, whether it's for your synovial fluid, or the way your skin texture is or whatever, and just tremendous health benefits of that, and how easy it is and how you can really do it simply by yourself. So thank you, Camille, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm witnessing history, and I don't know what this podcast is going to be, but knowing you today, I know it's going to be something epic. So it's cool to be here at the beginning of it.
Yeah. Well, and we're in Santa Fe right now. It's maybe 30 degrees
Cold.
Outside. Yeah, very chilly. Not quite April and super chilly, but you're just here from
San Diego.
San Diego now, right?
I grew up in Taos, though.
And where did you go to school? Where did you first start getting an interest in paleo?
Oh, I should probably start before that, because paleo is actually a pretty recent phenomenon for me. But I have been interested in cooking for probably since I was like 5 or 6. I actually remember growing up in New Mexico. I think that the first thing I ever made was the red chili sauce that you smother on burritos.
Yeah. Of
course you know that because you live in Santa Fe. So I really wanted to make that. I remember coming home from school one day and saying, okay, it's wet, it's chili. So I took my mom's entire bag of red chili powder and water. It was probably like 2 pounds or 3 pounds of chili, and I mixed it up and thought, this is going to be delicious.
Oh my God!
It definitely was not delicious, and my mom was not that happy that I wasted all of her chili powder.
I mean, for those that don't know, it's like concentrate. It's like if you were to make, like back in the day, a juice mix concentrate or something, and just drink the concentrate.
Exactly.
Basically, is what she did.
But even more
except
disgusting.
with horrific spice that would be like a pastiness, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was that was the first thing I remember making. My mom's actually here. I'm sure she would probably remind me of something I made before that. But I think that even in my earliest days, I was veering towards paleo. Because when I was teething, I used to go into the fridge and gnaw on sticks of butter.
Awesome.
Yeah, and my mom had to actually bungee cord the refrigerator closed so that I wouldn't get into the refrigerator to get the butter. So I even knew about healthy saturated fat at the ripe age of 2.
That's fantastic. It's like little butter sickles.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, I grew up cooking. We mostly ate at home. My entire family loves to cook. Our holiday meals largely revolved around food. My mom was a good cook, very intuitive. We have chefs in the family. I mean, food has always been a really central thing. But and I was doing dinner parties in high school, but I went to a very good university. I actually got a degree in economics.
Wow.
And even though I was, making drunken meals 2 a.m. for people in my dorm,
right.
It was like being a chef was not acceptable when you have this degree from this school.
Right.
And so it wasn't until I had the lame sit behind a desk office job for a couple years that I was finally like...
When you find out what an economist does.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like super boring
right.
and you want to rip your eyeballs out. That I quit my job. I declared myself a private chef. I was living in Santa Barbara, which has beautiful farmers markets and lots of people who can afford chefs.
Right.
And I quit my job and I declared that I was a chef.
And you're self-trained.
Yeah, totally self-trained.
That's so fucking
I actually
badass.
knew I was like a above average home cook at that time with a lot of confidence and people around me telling me I was good. And so I just had a pretty website and I had actually, so that dovetails into, I was starting to not feel very good. It was all around the same time where I would eat these big meals and have to take like a 5-hour nap afterwards and thinking there's something wrong here. I'm only like 23 years old. Went to a naturopathic doctor, was diagnosed with food allergies.
Everybody goes to a doctor and finds out.
Yeah.
They're like, you know what I found out? I'm like, yeah, if you go
You're
to
allergic to gluten?
Right, of course.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I found out I was allergic to gluten, dairy, soy, all of those, and had a breakdown because that was everything that I ate.
What did your breakdown look like?
It looked like staring at a wall for a bit. Sometimes it looked like crying, and it was like, what the F am I going to eat now? Because I loved food, and all of my food revolved around gluten and dairy.
I want to assure you can go ahead and say fuck if you'd like.
Oh, okay.
Completely acceptable. It always feels weird not to. Like, if that's my adjective of choice, but I'm just going to sound out the first letter so as not to offend anyone. Aren't we saying the same thing anyway?
I know, right?
Yeah.
I feel weird having it come out of my
It's
mouth.
so natural now, though. Last couple of years, everybody says it and everybody accepts it. And they're like, yeah, that's what it is.
I know. I love expressing myself. I guess I think I'm fooling somebody, but I'm not when I just say that.
It does sound sweeter, I guess, a bit more demure maybe.
I know. It's not as abrasive to your ears, to my ears. Anyway, I've had a glass and a half of wine, so who knows what's about to come out.
I really like the whole thing about declaring who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's an interesting idea. It's like everybody that I talked to, the last podcast I did was with a fantastic artist, photographer named Esteban Oriol, who he got a start. He was touring with, he was a door guy, you know, in LA, and then he was touring with House of Pain and Everlast and then Be Real and all those guys in Cypress Hill. And so he's going around the world in the early 90s, and then his dad was a photographer that was broke and was like, dude, you gotta take pictures of this. You have to document this. This is an epic time for you. And he said, okay. And he gave him a camera. He gave him his first camera. I said, well, what was your training like, you know, as a photographer? And he says, this is my dad that said, okay, you look through there and you twist this dial and then you turn this knob. And when those two sticks that are in the middle line up, that's when you're ready to go. And he said that was my training for how to take pictures, and he just figured it out from there. And he's one of the most prolific artists I've ever seen.
I love it.
In the realm, and it's kind of like the interesting thing is these conversations are kind of born of that. Is that, you know, for years that like my sister also she got an art history degree from the University of Michigan, and she's a chef. Mm-hmm. You know, and she like. There's a lot of that about like, what am I going to do in my early 20s? And everybody talks about they have to declare something about like who I'm going to be or whatever. And nobody thinks about declaring it out of their own creativity, you know? And another friend of mine that I spend a lot of time with, he's like, here, you know, he has a hashtag for all his pictures of fake gym. And he runs a CrossFit gym, but it's on the bluffs of Santa Monica. It's called Functional Fitness on the Bluffs. And they're just going into a gym now, I think after 2 years of being open and running a viable business. And he's like, it just trips me out. Here I am, out of this idea that came to me in my head that nobody said I could do, with an acronym that's far too long to make any sense of Functional Fitness on the Bluffs. I mean,
totally.
And
it's working.
And here it all is, you know, and just that kind of thing about like, and for myself of like, I wasn't able to fit into these molds. And what is it that you'd really like to do? What are your druthers, and why are you not expressing that through yourself and your community and for your own smile? I mean, for God's sakes, you know?
Oh my gosh, I love it. This conversation, what you just brought up, this is the kind of stuff I live for. I was actually just talking to my mom on the car ride over, just about, you know, the difference. You know, most people live like you have something and then you do something like, when I have enough money, then I can do this, then I'll be that.
Right.
But like swapping that around, you know, you and I both have this landmark connection where I first learned this, where you look at, you know, who do I want to be? And that's what you're talking about, like the declaring of it. And for us to get is like as humans, we have this tremendous amount of power inside of us to declare and create.
Yeah.
And then you see these stories like, you know, your friends you've talked about. Like for me, I didn't even really consciously know that I was doing it at the time. It actually, for me, came out of like desperation that I can't do what I'm doing and I'm going to do this. But, you know, looking back on it, that was one of the boldest, most authentic decisions I'd ever made, was to just say, hey, I love to cook. I know that I have this degree that tells me to do something else, but I get excited. I used to sit in my upper level economics classes and write shopping lists for the meal that I wanted to make for my friends when I got home that night. I failed that class, but I was making amazing community dinners, you know? So it's like...
It's so phenomenal, too, when you think about it in those terms. And you go, well, it's a waste, though. I spent all this money was spent. Like you look at all this, you can build up these defenses for I should be an economist because then all these experiences are valueless. It's like it's not true. It's brought you to this place where you can be true to that. And I thought the same thing. Like I was, you know, at some point supposed to be a lawyer or something like that, and I thought I would probably have killed myself in under that condition, you know. And I don't know, it's weird too, you know, I think about that declaring and whatever it is, it's like it's all a magic trick anyway. It's all bullshit. It's like even when we discuss about what is really reality, it's like, is this solid or not really? We agree that it is, and we think that it is, and we have an idea that it is, but it's just swirling electrons that aren't really solid at all. You know what I mean? It's like, what are those things? And so we fucking make it up, man, and get creative and do whatever. And those are always the people that I see that are the happiest, that are doing the best, like financially in every way.
Yeah, I've come. So this one quote, I know that you know this, and I'm not going to get it perfect, but it's one of my favorite quotes. It's by, I know it's spelled Goethe, but it's like Goethe. G-O-E. Is it how do you spell it?
Goethe.
Goethe.
G-O-E-T-H-E.
Yeah. So it's basically like, until one is committed, there is hesitancy, a chance to draw back. Concerning all acts of, wow, I know it better than I thought. Maybe it's the line. Awesome. So concerning all acts of initiative, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and endless plans, that the moment one definitely commits themselves, then providence moves too. All kinds of things that you never would have thought possible, just, now I'm ruining it, but they just, you know, they line up for you. And so whatever you have in your heart to do, begin it now. Boldness has genius and power in it. And I've had that pasted on my wall for years. And the vision of it, when you think about it, it's at the root, maybe subconsciously, but for all these stories we're talking about, me being as a chef and your friends, that it's about somewhere knowing in yourself that you declare that this is who I am and this is this contribution I'm going to make, and the entire world shifts. Like this table that you thought was solid forms around and comes into agreement with what you have just declared. And there is so much power in that.
It's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of two different quotes that are born from that, of like, in love and war, fortune favors the brave, you know, and like in that committed aspect. And then I don't know if it was like a Marianne Williamson or something, but there's this
don't even tell me. It's probably my favorite
I read
quote.
It somewhere, but you know, if we and it'll be a bastardization of it, but if we only made our decisions based on our rational mind, then there would be no dreamers, that we would never fall in love, there'd be no entrepreneurs, and sometimes you have to just jump off cliffs and build your wings on the way down. And it's like getting to those points where you're just empty and you're like, this is the ceiling, I'm at the end and there's nothing else here. And it's like, those are always the points in my life where it's like you need to jump.
That's an awesome visualization, jumping off the cliff and building your wings as you fall.
And the whole thing is like, I never get to that point really out of braveness. I always get to that point going, I can't live this way anymore. You know, and then I go
rock bottom,
and it's like, and regardless of what that is, and I was talking to somebody the other night. They're like, well, how do you achieve this and that and what? And all I've tried to do is do something scary every day. Like I put myself into a state of discomfort all the time, to where I'm not really even self-reliant. Where I'm like, the universe has got to carry me through this, and I put myself in it, and I agree to do it and go through with it. But
life begins at the end of your comfort zone.
Exactly. So those kinds of ideas, I think, are invaluable. I mean, as far as to impart those on people that are that are growing up, that are going through struggles, that are, I mean, fuck, whatever it is, you know, you talk to people that are on the verge of suicide, that are looking at all these other things because it all seems so serious, and it is for them at that moment. But fuck, it all changes just like that too.
It really can.
Just with your thoughts.
Yeah, it really, really can.
Yeah. And so how I guess going back to your diet, you said you got really ill.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wasn't like on my deathbed. I just didn't feel good after most every meal. I felt like post Thanksgiving dinner.
Right.
Almost like all the time. And so I just knew that there was something up and I should check it out. So you were asking me, like, how did it feel to be so in such despair about not being able to eat pizza and mac and cheese and things like that. I was desperate to feel good, you know, like hitting rock bottom. It was like, yeah, I wanted to eat those things, but I really needed to feel good more than that. And like I do with so many things, because I was pretty desperate, though, I just threw myself into it. And I just started reading. I also don't have any training in nutrition, but I know a lot about nutrition now because I was desperate to feel good. So I read lots and lots of books. I already had some cooking skills. Obviously, I think I was sort of working as a chef, but I ended up tailoring my private chef business. It was called Heavenly Home Gourmet. And I actually tailored it for people with special needs diets because I said, you know, if I'm having a hard time knowing what to eat and I have all these cooking skills, people who don't know what to eat and have just been given the same information I've been given.
Or something.
Yeah, life is like really, really hard for them. And so I want my private chef business to cater to those people. And that worked. That worked almost instantly. I started working with some naturopathic doctors who pushed me clients and all of that. So
now, do you think that there would be a place when you said I don't have any formal training, and what I like, I mean, what my background is a lot similar to what you're talking about, is through my own experience and my own exploration because of my own deficiencies or because of friends of mine, and looking, like, my whole thing is regardless of how it is, whether you're talking about spiritually or physically or whatever, is how do I have function and performance in my life, and then how does that then go into my community, and how does like all that kind of stuff. And so, you know, so many doctors, I mean, if you read Men's Health and Fitness or something like that, there's guys with PhDs at the end of their names that are saying stuff that's laughable to me, that I know is damaging to bodies, the advice they're giving about health, about diet, about nutrition, about sleep habits, about whatever it is. And is there a school that you could have gone to or that you could go? I mean, is there training like that even available?
There is. I'm not familiar with any. I know there's some schools in like functional. I don't know enough about it. I know there's like integrative health. There's something to do with like functional type health. There are some programs. I'm sure there's ones that I don't know about. I think naturopathic doctors are amazing.
Ahead of the curve, yeah.
Yeah, I think that they know a lot of great things.
It seems like the whole paleo primal kind of movement is such a underground thing that's just been carried virally through Twitter.
What's
or
interesting, and we were having this conversation at the cooking class today, but that is where, just to refresh people listening, you know, we started.
That weren't at the cooking class today.
That weren't there with us today, unfortunately.
Sorry, fuckers.
It was fun and tasted good. What was I going to say? So, you know, it's really easy. You know, there's a lot of things going on in our world, and even if we just want to stick to our healthcare system, that when you're people like us who really understand what health can look like for people and what's possible for the human body if you feed it right, it's really sad to see the level of sickness in our society and the professionals, the doctors, the system that's meant to support people really not. Right. And it's really easy to get discouraged, just get focused on the negativity, to get pissed off, to spend all of your time railing against it, when, you know, I'm quite clear for myself that you don't want to bury your head under a rock about what's there, but that it does no good to dwell on the negativity when we live in America, where we have the right to like put up this podcast, where we have the right to do what we want, to, for the most part, you know, to eat what we want, to consume the kinds of supplements we want. And we have the power of free speech, where you can put up a blog, and if what you're doing has value to people, then you're going to build a following. And so we have, like you said, this underground health movement that has picked up so much momentum. And I see these people around me who are making a huge contribution to this conversation of what health really is just on their own, without even necessarily, some of the people who, to me, are making the biggest contribution in health have zero formal training in health. And they just, you pick up a book that you can get at the library. Think about like Good Will Hunting style, you can just, we have the ability to
You can go to Harvard on the internet.
Exactly. You can learn anything. Yep. And so going back to this ancestral health thing, I love where that's all going.
What did you call it? Ancestral health?
Ancestral health. Didn't you just say
that?
that
Term.
Oh,
no,
I thought you just said it.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, so looking at how did our ancestors eat. And then now what's really exciting, I'm actually on my way to PaleoFX in a couple days, which is like all about functional paleo and looking at, taking anthropology and how our cavemen ate, how our ancestors ate. And then now there's all of this amazing body of research that's being conducted by Harvard, I know the University of San Francisco, lots of the big think tanks. Yeah, that's like this, the cutting edge science, that's really not funded by pharmaceutical companies, is beginning to support the idea of like this really ancient way of living and eating, going back like pre-industrial times.
I think it's so super important too, because when you think about that, I don't know if it's been viral lately about there's cures for cancer that some kid in Canada came up with, or there's all these things, but then they say, well, it'll never get manifested because there's no pharmaceutical company that can put money behind it to the research,
to do the testing,
to get it and they're not interested in that. They're interested, and it's like it's so blatant in that we're just interested not in cures but in stringing you out, and that's been, the FDA is culpable. The American Health Association is culpable in that, in making us sick as a populace, in soy futures, in wheat futures, when it became traded and pushed, and they go, hey, maybe 9 to 12 servings of wheat and grains a day. It's like you're pushing a hyperinsulinic diet onto a bunch of people that are going to need to be medicated after 10 or 20 years.
Yeah, and the thing that instantly just came to my mind, though, that is so cool, going back to just the state of like the freedom of information that we have, is that, because we don't have to, there is the unfortunate side that most people are living in that system that you just spoke of. And also what we know and the transformation that you and I and so many others are bringing is that we can bypass that system entirely.
Right.
And that's what's like so amazing to me. Like, it's not like I don't know, maybe we are required to buy health insurance. I don't know about Obamacare actually that much, but really, by and large, we can actually bypass that system. And because we know that our body is this amazing, beautiful machine that if given the right fuel can heal itself, then people like you and I can talk about the healing properties of food and of juicing and of detoxing and of like this kid in Canada coming up with this thing, and we can get that information out to people, and we can literally heal ourselves, and we can heal a whole generation of people just in sharing our transformation and sharing this information, such that, you don't even, I think almost never about our healthcare system. I don't spend a lot of time dwelling on it, because
I want to make sure that all my friends have health insurance, but I don't give a fuck that anybody ever uses that. Like I would hope, I care.
Have it for an accident.
I care more immensely that they never get there because they're eating and treating themselves in a manner which would negate any need for that to ever come to pass.
95% of people are dying by way of their fork.
Right. And that's crazy to think about. That's crazy. And the when I first got into paleo, I guess I first started with the zone diet. Was the first thing I ever tried was like an Atkins diet when I was first started competing as a fighter. And it was the first way I dropped weight, and because you had to fight in weight classes, cutting weight is a big thing for guys that were in my field. And but then I got into the zone diet. Then I got into paleo diet, and then I met Mark Sisson, got into that, and in his primal diet, and then I was like a coffee. Just crazy for coffee, and then a dude turned me on to the bulletproof coffee, and then I met Dave Asprey and became a big proponent for, he has a whole bulletproof diet, and he's got a great PDF where it's like on the red side or on the green side of what you want to eat, whether it's sweeteners, whether it's
I
fats.
think I've seen that. Yeah, it makes it pretty simple to understand.
Super simple and helpful for everybody out there, because it doesn't need to be this complex thing, and it can cut all the complexity out of it, which is really useful. But the first thing that I noticed, the Zone didn't treat it, the Atkins didn't treat it, but like really when I cut out grains completely and when I went into a paleo diet, I'd had acid reflux to the point where I couldn't sleep at night. I'd have to sleep sitting up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And one of my dad's friends had just died of esophageal cancer, and it was from scarring from acid reflux is what I found out. And I thought, God, I'm a young guy, and this is where this is headed. And I was taking something that was over the counter, some popular acid reflux.
Yeah, acid reflux.
Prilosec.
Yeah, acid reflux is the medication over the counter is the number one thing that is taken in the United States. It's so crazy. Like by far.
So I'm taking that shit. It says you can take it for 3 weeks and you can take it 4 times a year or something. So you can't even take it that much. But it would do the trick for the first year. The second year I'm taking that stuff every day. Like I've got no downtime from it. And it's not giving me any relief. And then I go to a doctor. He scopes me. I woke up while the scope was in me. That was a whole nother kind of excitement for everybody in the room. And then they put me down again right away. But they found a lot of scarring, and they gave me the ads are like a little purple pill. Nexium was the thing. And so that had to get prescribed. And then I took
and
that
then you
for
have to deal.
3 months or 6 months.
Then you have to get something to deal with the side effects of the thing that you're taking.
And there's a way you can get it cheaper, and there's all these hoops that you had to jump through anyway. I was paleo. I got called out to do Jonah Hex, I think. And so I was gone. I was in L.A. for like 2 weeks or something. And when I got back, and I was paleo for maybe a month or something before then. And I got back, and I go, oh, fuck. There were my Nexium pills were on the fucking on the counter. But I hadn't had an episode at all. I was so trained. I opened the counter, and I took 2 of them. And I swallowed them. I'm like, why'd you do that? I have no need for this anymore. And awesome. It cured. And so here I was trained in a way that like sometimes your body's just broken and you need pills or whatever. And then it was the first time I really go, okay, diet, you can eat yourself into wellness. And then conversely, you were eating yourself into sickness. And it's since then it's been just a super interesting conversation that I can't shut up about. Yeah,
it's so powerful. And it goes that one simple shift in conversation from I'm inherently broken and I'm looking to this healthcare system to fix me with a pill, and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm going to go to this doctor. They're going to give me a pill, and hopefully it's going to get better. To most people unfortunately come to where we are because that didn't work. And they got desperate for something else.
And what's so shitty is that we have these talks with other people, and I can talk to a guy that's 400 pounds and be telling him this.
And he's still saying, I don't know what
my doctor, I got to check with my doctor. I'm like, your doctor is nearly retarded. He has zero idea of this. Do you ever ask your doctor why he's 50 pounds overweight? Do you ever, you know what I mean? It's like, what kind of function is it in his life? Like, how can he help you?
And that's what's tough. It's like, it's really easy even to blame, and we talked about this earlier. It's like I really want to believe and do believe that people are doing the best they can.
Sure.
And I know people who are doctors and even who entered the field of, when you decide to go to medical school and do like all of that training, people have a real commitment to help others. You don't become a doctor for that.
Right.
But then it's like they're taught what they're taught. They're taught this curriculum.
It's that thing of like, if I only got a hammer, everything's a nail.
Exactly. And that really is what it is. So I think it's like, it doesn't really help much. It's infuriating, right?
Sure.
That people aren't learning the right stuff. But it's also like having known people who have entered medicine and even conventional medicine with the right hearts. I don't want to like place the blame. You just hope that like people like us who are,
right,
us in this whole movement.
And this whole internet, it's like there's no time that's easier to be accountable to yourself. But
totally.
You have to be your own advocate. Like that's the thing you've got to express to people is that you have to be your own advocate in that.
Yeah, so sorry.
That's all right.
Okay, so where are we going now with this?
Wherever you want.
Okay, so
another glass of wine.
No, I'm going to stop with that.
All right. What I was interested in too, what you were talking about when you were talking about intestinal care. And because that's a subject that I've just only recently started getting interested in. And really interested in it. I'd heard years ago there was a couple guys, and I'd read this. They did an article, I think it was in Maxim, where they'd gone to Thailand and they did a fast, and then they did like multiple colonics every day for like 9 days or 14 days or something like that. And they talked about it. They said, like we're in steel commodes were in the huts where we were, and you could hear like it sounded like watches dropping out of there. It was just like clunk, clunk. And what we'd learned is that there's a casing that develops around your intestinal tract over years, and
Really?
And that nutrients just can't seep through anymore, and that there's a deadening of this organ, and like I think everybody, I mean, you just think of it like here's this shitty sewage pipe that is in my body.
Yeah.
But it's not that. It's like the nutritional life force of your body.
Totally.
In the hugest of ways, like when there's
it really
billions and billions of bacteria that are what we are. We're made of that.
Right. If your external body is the tree, then your digestive tract is the roots.
Right.
And I mean, I think that, in dovetailing back to the conversation we were just having about like what we're talking about versus conventional medicine, which is dealing with the symptoms, like, oh, the tree isn't doing well, so let's pluck off these leaves. It's, oh, this tree isn't doing well, I wonder what's going on with the roots. Are the roots absorbing its nutrients? Are the roots getting its water? So that's like a good, I think, sort of analogy to start. But so in terms of, so we said a couple things. We talked about enemas, but just basically around digestion. I know you wanted to talk about inflammation also, but life and death happen in your digestive tract. So that starts in your mouth, from the place where you're beginning to chew your food and you have saliva releasing, to when you excrete in your bowel movements, right? And what happens between those 2 points in your body is, I mean, it's really everything for your health. And so, and that's like, if people could really understand what it means to have, like, how to get back to having a healthy digestion, if you can get back to that place, everything in your body is going to take care of itself, really almost everything. And so I guess I just want to...
You think of it, that is the root base of your body.
Oh, completely.
Is your colon.
I mean, how could it not be? I mean, you're taking in food for life, right? Like, if we didn't eat, eventually, very soon we're going to die.
And so to break it down like that, like your mouth softens it so your esophagus can move it. Your stomach breaks it up a little bit with acids and such. It passes through, and really all the nutrients, there's no nutrients that are coming into your body from your food until it's in your intestines. Is that right?
I am not an expert on exactly how it works. My friend, Dr. Lauren Noel, she's actually writing a book this year on digestive health. She is the expert on this. But from what I understand, digestion actually begins when you look at your food. There's something that happens in your brain then. And then when you chew, this is why it's really important to chew your food really well, because it begins as you chew your food, you release saliva. And the saliva and the enzymes in your saliva begin to like break it down. This is where you get that I'm not an expert, that I didn't go to medical school, or that I'm not a naturopathic doctor, because some of this stuff is a little fuzzy. But it begins to break down then, and then it travels down into your stomach. And my friend, I'll mention him again later. He and I are doing a lot of work together. Drew Canoli, he's with Fit Life TV. But he explained it.
FitLife.tv?
FitLife.tv, yeah. And you'll be seeing, we're launching a channel, Fit Life Kitchen. I'll tell you guys about that later. But he explained it. He said something that made perfect sense today. Or not today, I heard it a couple days ago. But that he's really into juicing. He's a big advocate of juicing. And he said, your body is a juicer. So your body's ability to actually, like, extract like the juice from the food is really based upon like how strong your digestion is and how extractable the food is. So if you look at, like, let's take a juice, for example, which after today you've told me you're now going to start juicing.
Shitty. I'll tell you, it's like I was so stoked. Like Asprey went on, I was on Joe's podcast, and then I brought a bunch of Bulletproof coffee, and Joe loves coffee. And so Rogan and I are talking a bit, and then he's like, where did you get this crazy idea to put butter and coconut oil and all this in your coffee? And I said, well, Dave Asprey, this guy who's got a thing, Bulletproof Exec. A couple weeks later, Dave Asprey's on Joe's thing, and he really goes into talking about food, and it's a lot of what you were talking about like boiling stock, boiling bones, and really how really vital. I mean, it's kind of like when people ask me about what kind of whey protein or what, I think the most important thing is what I know and what I don't do yet is to make that is to have a couple glasses of that every day.
Yeah, I just had this amazing analogy I've never thought of before. Broth is like meat juice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the most important. It's probably the most important thing. It's like that, water, and sleep. If you want good health, it's like you need those vital nutrients that come from that. Anyway, what Dave said was, he said, as far as vegetarians go, he says, I don't believe that you can get the highest amount of nourishment, the highest amount of performance if you're not eating large animals, if you're not eating buffalo, deer, elk, antelope, cows.
Yeah, the ruminants.
Yeah, and if you aren't, you're just not gonna be as healthy. You're not gonna perform as well. You're not gonna live as long. You need to be careful that they're not fed corn, that they're all that kind of stuff, because there's aflatoxins
and you don't want to eat too
things.
much of it. You don't want to eat 3 meals
all
a day.
That, yeah. And so I was like, solid, because I fucking love meat. That's great news for me. But then, with just as much veracity that you're speaking about juicing today, and I'm looking at you, and I was like, fuck. Now I can't not juice. Like it's like it's been something like that. Friends like Rogan's like, dude, you feel great. You have these kale shakes, and I'm like, fuck that. I don't want to have that. I don't want to have a glass of vegetables or what. But like what you say sounds so solid, and to it's like to know and not do it. It's kind of like I don't feel like there's any sin in changing your oil and dumping your oil into the lake. If you don't know what that does to the environment, whatever. Maybe you're an idiot, but you don't have a bad heart. But after you fucking know, you can't not know anymore,
Totally.
Like,
so now you know
so
you
now
got to juice.
Now I went to Amazon, and I'm like, now what's a good juicer? Now I got to find a goddamn juicer. So
awesome.
So we'll have questions about juicing later. We'll have to get on the internet and see.
Okay, cool. So I want to go back to this.
Yeah.
We're talking about digestion. We were talking about our body being a human juicer.
Yes.
So this really got me when I heard him say this the other day. So your body is a human juicer. So when you actually drink juice, the work has been done, right?
Okay.
So you're able to.
But that's no good, right? When you just drink juice. Like if I just drink orange juice, it's.
No, we're not talking about orange juice.
Okay.
We're
I think it's
we're
important
talking
to
about
differentiate.
like freshly. Yeah, I'm sorry, you're right.
That's
We're
right.
not talking about just drinking orange juice or apple juice or whatever. We're talking about like freshly pressed green vegetable juice. That's like not that a low sugar content, that's mostly leafy greens,
Right. Kale, maybe some radish.
Kale, romaine, cucumbers, celery, parsley, like lots of vegetables, but lower sugar content.
Right.
I mean, you can go to
very little fruit. Sometimes a slice of apple for like flavor or something.
Yeah, FitLife.tv has 8 gazillion juice recipes, and you can get all
My
that
friend
information
Tim Frankie, he's been into it for like a year, and he's been telling me about it, and I'm like, yeah. But
well, I'm glad that I was the one that
he knows a ton, and so I'm gonna have to, because he's the one that's like, you don't want to get anything. Some of the juicers, they go so fast and they'll burn out the nutrients, and some are like this, and some. So I've just got to find a happy medium, like what you were talking about. It won't even pick up.
Okay.
That will. We're just talking about other people in the room right now. And so I just have to find something that's that's doable for me. And that's the whole thing of having a functional lifestyle that is performance based. Part of that for me is that it can't be arduous.
Yeah.
I'm not going to work too hard at that aspect of it, because the rest
it
is
has
so
to
big.
be sustainable.
It has to be.
Yeah, that's a big conversation for me. About it being like, if it's not sustainable, it's not sustaable.
Right.
It's like you'll do it for a little while, you're burnt out, and it doesn't matter because you have to be able to do it over a long period. So there is, there's something to be said. You were just talking about juicers and like what kind of juicer and all of that. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. We won't get that much into the topic, but I recommend there's $100 Breville juicer on Amazon. It's small. It's super easy to clean. You may not get as many of the nutrients as you would get from like the $3,000 Norwalk juicer that's going to like take an hour to clean, but it's like a billion times better than not doing anything at all. So it has to work for your body.
15 cups of coffee a day to 8 cups of coffee and 3 glasses of juice, I'm going to be profoundly.
That's a win.
Yeah.
That's definitely a win.
If you're going from Diet Cokes, guys, and you're going to drink juice, it doesn't matter where the fuck the juicer came from.
Yeah, exactly. Get the juicer. And people can it's really easy to lose, to not be able to see the forest through the trees or saying like that. Sure. But so to just to start where you're at and take small steps. And it's like you continue to take small steps forward. And at the end of, however long, you've had a huge transformation. So anyway, so going back to your body as a juicer, yes. Can we please stay on this? And he said something then about, so you think about the foods that you're put into your body. And so obviously with something like juice, freshly made green juice, your body isn't going to have to do any work on that. And you're able to extract those nutrients, not even extract, those nutrients can easily go into your body and straight into the parts of your body, into your blood that you really, that are needed. Versus, imagine putting a cheeseburger through a juicer.
Right.
How much juice is going to come out of that cheeseburger? Like zero.
That was one of the first things I did when I started thinking about diet. And I was like, because I used to eat the shit out of some McDonald's. And then the first thing I thought was, would you eat those fries if they were cold?
No.
And I was like, absolutely not. I started, that's the way I started eating. I'm like, maybe if it's cold and I would not eat it, then I shouldn't eat it when it's warm either.
Yeah.
Those are huge points.
Yeah. But then going back to digestion, you look at if your body is a juicer, like how well is your human juicer performing?
Right.
Does it have sharp blades? Does it have a motor that can actually crank out the nutrients? I mean, you can keep taking it further. Is the filter clean to be able to get that juice in? And when you really start to look at your body as a juicer, and am I putting things into the juicer that machine would even be able to extract nutrients out of?
Right.
And you look at the McDonald's, you look at the processed stuff, you look at the things that people are eating, and it's more like the analogy of digging a ditch 24 hours a day without getting a break. Your body is just working and working and working, trying to extract some nutrients when we know that this food is devoid of nutrients.
Does that stress your body? I mean,
completely.
does that speak to cortisol levels being heightened and things like that?
Yeah, I don't understand that exact connection. That's more of a doctor thing. But I can say that, when you talk about inflammation, when you talk about, we haven't even talked about really food allergies yet, but let's say you take, on the one hand, you're taking, let's say, you're starting your day drinking a juice, which has the nutrients are readily available. They're able to get into your body. It's not your digestive tract is not really having to work to process it much. Then maybe you're going on to a meal of other whole foods, maybe some good quality protein, some leafy green vegetables, some good quality fat. Your body, especially if it's already in a state of operating well, is able to do that. It's able to pull everything apart and do something with it. And so you're left after you eat your meals feeling vital and alive and with energy. So that's the ideal case. That's a person whose juicer is working and, giving it the vegetables it needs to be able to extract that juice. But, on the flip side, then you look at a person whose juicer isn't working very well because, you're feeding it cheeseburgers all day long. So it's your body is working really, really hard to extract any nutrients it can out of it. It's working on overdrive to get something, and so I see people who are really fat, right? And I look at them and I say they're starving. And you say, how can that be? They're eating 4,000 calories a day.
Well, that's the way American is. We have the highest obesity problem in the world. And we have a terrifically high starvation rate and malnutrition rate. Mm-hmm. It's astonishing when you look at those numbers. But the idea of terrifically obese people are malnourished,
who are totally starving,
and that the only foods that are available. I mean, a lot of it is you're a fucking idiot also, but. If you're in that condition, you've made choices to put yourself into a spot like that.
Well,
the other thing is I think that things are pushed in that way where the cheapest foods are the foods that are the shittiest for you. And so you look at only the cheapness of the food. You don't have a broad enough view to go, this cheap food is going to cost me in all these other areas.
Right. But the thing is, again, going back to I'm just standing in the place of people are doing the best they can with the information they have, and why we're doing what we do. It's
not true.
People are not choosing. I don't think nobody's consciously choosing to be overweight. They may be.
One of my best friends takes insulin every day.
Mm-hmm.
He's got type 2 diabetes that he got when he was 50 years old. He's not terrifically overweight, obese.
Obese.
He goes to the gym every day.
Mm-hmm.
He eats in such a way that he's got diabetes. And now when he's doing well, he's eating Weight Watchers frozen meals and stuff like that, and taquitos.
Right.
When I talk to him about it and I say, I can cure you from this, he said, I don't drink, I don't smoke. He says, it's the last thing I do is I like to enjoy my food. Now, he's eating shit food. Right. First of all, if you're eating Weight Watchers frozen meals, that's not delicious. I'm sorry.
Right.
But there are people that are, my point being that there's a ton of people that are like that. He'd rather take a shot of insulin every day than, and that's crazy because that is the state. And I don't know if that's a state of your mind where you feel impotent to make a change, where you don't believe in it.
Well,
or
that
what
was what I was just going to say. And this is going back to like landmark terminology. Pardon me if this sounds a little like you may not understand it, but what they say is that people act correlate to the way the world occurs for them. So there's something about how this situation is for your friend that his actions are totally correlate with that. Like, I don't know what it is. Like how it is for him is eating healthy wouldn't make a difference, or he doesn't feel like he has the willpower to eat healthy, or
the hook
that he doesn't, or that he may not believe or care about his life enough to be willing to make that change. Whatever it is, his actions are perfectly correlate to how his
I guess
point
some
of view.
things are good enough, and it's good enough. And if it's good, if whatever is good enough for you, then it's good enough. I guess it's similar to the idea about there's people that shit's good enough for, and there's people that are going, how can I make this better?
Right, but the thing is that it's not period. Like, my friend is just how my friend is, and this is always how it's going to be, period. Because
how it's always going to be is not true. It's
right,
just today.
like, but and that's where we have this tremendous power as advocates for transformation and for people's health to continue to stand for them, to continue to talk to your friend, to have compassion for him and say, but listen, buddy, I get that this is how it may seem to you, like your only joy and pleasure is in eating this way. But hey, like, what if I could introduce a way of eating to you that actually would taste way better? Because you had the food in my class today. It tastes way better than that stuff. And
that soup,
you
I'm
could
not a
feel
soup
good.
guy, but oh my
yeah, it's good, right?
God. It's true. And so that kind of thing, like what happened today, it makes me want to. Right. It makes me, you having exposed me to that, and then the juicing thing and believing what you're saying, and then I go, I need, like, when you're like, I didn't know I could feel this good. I felt I was already operating at a very high level because I'm fully paleo.
Right.
And da-da-da-da-da. And then where can I take it higher? And like, and that whole idea of like, could you stand to feel better? Could you get brought into a better place? Absolutely. And if this is it, and that made such a profound change for you, then maybe for me too. And then da-da-da-da.
Yeah, because I was already operating at a level of health that was higher than probably most people. And so getting back to juicing, I used to juice a lot actually, but doing for me personally, doing the juicing and the paleo, it has brought my health to a level that,
new heights.
Really new heights. Yeah, it's amazing. But
how much do you sleep every day?
I sleep a fair amount. I've been trying to go to bed earlier. I used to be a total night owl. I would stay up until like 2 a.m, but I was like classic adrenal fatigue. I would stay up till 2, sleep until 9, and then be tired. So I try to go to bed when I can by 10. Like 10 to 6 has been how I've been sleeping more lately and getting more back onto my circadian rhythm. It doesn't always work. I'm not totally there yet, but that makes a huge difference. I don't need a nap. But I'm not 100% there, but I'm getting there. I feel.
When are we gonna get you swinging some kettlebells? And stuff
tomorrow. Like woo woo. I'm gonna be sore, but I'm on my way to PaleoFX. If I hadn't ever done any CrossFit before getting there,
what's PaleoFX?
I don't know that much about it, actually. I know it's all about functional paleo, and all of my hero types are there, like Chris Kresser and Rob Wolf and Mark Sisson. I think they're all going to be there.
Have you met Rob before?
I haven't met any of them.
Holy fuck. He's one of my
His book changed my
favorite
life.
people.
Yeah, his book
a lot
totally
of people,
changed my life.
And I push it down, like read
you
this.
push it down people's throats?
Read it, or I'm not. Because everybody's a knothead, like, oh, what about this? What about that? And I'm like, I won't even talk to you if you're not going to read this. Because we could have the same – I've had the same conversation with so many of my friends a dozen times. And I'm like, you don't retain anything. You're not really committed to anything. And so read the book. And then after you read the
It's
book,
very compelling.
and you try it for a couple weeks, because now we have something to talk about, which will be called your experience, asshole.
Yeah.
And then we can have a discussion. But otherwise, it's just palaver. We're not going to do that anymore. I'm bored.
Yeah, our conversation has gotten off to a lot of tangents, but when I started doing paleo, it was only like 6 or 7 months ago, and I wasn't feeling that great.
Right.
I was under a lot of stress with my business, and I was staying up way too late. My circadian rhythms were all off, but my doctor told me that I had adrenal fatigue and my thyroid was a little bit underactive. And another friend right away gave me Rob Wolf's book, and I devoured that thing. I think I read the entire thing in a day and a half, and I was like, all right, I'm going paleo. And I started doing my bone broth. And
what I love about Rob too is when his first book is all about. I was a vegetarian.
Was his first book Paleo Solution?
Yeah, it's like his path on it, and he's like, this is just what I found out. And there's no argument in that. It's just, here's what my life experience was, and
you can never argue.
And it brought me to this, and it's so beautiful the way it's written. It's very accessible. I found. I love him, and I love. He worked out at our gym for a while. He was here in Santa Fe. He and his wife while she was in school, but. And then Mark Siss and I was lucky enough to sit in one of his seminars with like 20 or 30 people and ask questions and stuff. And that is a fascinating man. Yeah. Like between the two of them, it's a tremendous amount of information. And one thing that I just want to clear with you
How long
in just 1 second, maybe we'll take a bathroom break. So anyway, I'm at this seminar with Sisson, and he's talking about the primal blueprint, and he spoke in regards to like fat burners and sugar burners. And I don't know if you've read his book or if you followed Mark's daily. You gotta.
I haven't read Mark Sisson's book, but I have seen some. I've read a lot of his blogs. I haven't read his book.
Yeah. So Mark's Daily Apple is his blog, and he goes into, he kind of breaks it down, and to paraphrase, he says every human falls into a category of either a sugar burner or a fat burner. And it really kind of changed my dynamic with food and the way I thought about it, and kind of the control that I had over my body in a lot of ways. And I just started last summer, I guess, with it. Just kind of strictly, and I've been my own experiment. I think we all are in this kind of a world. I'm going to try this 100%. I'm going to find out where it takes me and where it goes. And so after I got out of Mark's seminar, and what his premise is that you're either being fed by sugar all day long for energy and to continue going, or you're going to be fed by fats. And most of us are sugar burners. Most of us come from a high carbohydrate load all day long. You get hypoglycemic if you have an energy expenditure that outreaches what your capacity in your bloodstream is for blood sugar. And so you have to eat every couple hours, or you drop out, sometimes literally in a hard workout or something, or you're just not able to continue, or you get tired. Your moods ebb and flow throughout the day. They're very inconsistent. So that whole moody irritableness comes from that. And it's a storage of a lot of fat cells, because it's a big spike in your insulin several times throughout the day. Insulin being profoundly
really jacks with your hormones,
a storage hormone that comes out, and so it just stores that energy for a later date, because most of us aren't using all of it that's in our bloodstream all the time anyway. And so it just leads to diabetes and hyperinsulinemia and a host of other illnesses and obesity. It also leads to cancer in a lot of ways. He started speaking about it, that like most cells are just like any other entity. They want to duplicate themselves. And so just like mice or rabbits or people at the trailer park or whatever, everybody wants to have more of themselves. And the cell's the same way, but that the cells won't do it unless there's food, unless there's more quickly accessible food and nutrients, which is sugar, basically. And so without that, it's like people or mice or whatever will continue to, but your cells won't grow that way. And so you'll get an atrophy in your body, because the more the cells duplicate and split, the heighten the aging process is. And And then the free radicals that are attached to all your cells that your bloodstream picks up, they slough off and they're just go back into the host, making your body sick. And so you're kind of in this underlying sickness all the time. It's kind of like when I was eating wheat and gluten, I felt kind of like I was ill all the time, but I had no idea until I took it out of my body what well felt like, you know? And so then if you go to a fat burner, what he talks about with that same cell is that they're utilizing everything, and they will cannibalize the free radicals, eat that before they split. They'll make very judicious decisions, and it'll split slower, and you'll have a healthier body. You'll also, there's a conversion factor that he talked about that goes back to ancestral health of that if you're in a point of starvation for 3 to 5 days, your body will start to eat itself. It'll start to eat your adipose tissue. But it won't do that. It won't convert to eating your adipose tissue if you're a sugar burner still. And so he talks about having a high-fat diet being healthy in that way because your body will already be exogenously eating fat for its energy, which will be ever present. And if that fat's not there, there's no downside. There's no slowing down of your moods. There's no emotional ups and downs because it just goes and eats your endogenous fat stores in your adipose tissue, which I found to be true. And just I got leaner than I'd ever been. And it was just and I wonder what your thoughts are on that, or if you have experience with that, or if that rings true for you.
Well, I mean, you certainly summed up the science behind it. I have read Mark Sisson's research on that. I think you summed it up in a way I probably wouldn't be able to. I know for myself, in terms of like having transitioned to a paleo diet, though, that I was really hyper or hypoglycemic, where I had to, if I wasn't eating every couple of hours, that whole thing you talked about with your moods and your energy and all of that was going up and down, up and down. And now, and I'm not like that anymore. I do still try to eat pretty regularly, but if I don't eat exactly when I think I need to eat, if I have to go another hour, it's not the end of the world. It's not going to send me into some like freaky state. So I can say that for myself.
Are you careful with your sugars? Are you careful with your carbohydrate load in that way?
Well, yeah. I mean, I eat paleo, so I'm not eating.
But still, I know a lot of people that eat paleo and they eat a ton of fruit or whatever that they never get the results they want off of paleo because they're gorging themselves with so much fructose.
I'm not that drawn to fruit. Since I've been eating like for myself, however, the ratios of things I'm eating, I mean, I do in terms of like for my carbohydrates, I eat, sometimes I'll make a paleo dessert, maybe like once a week. I eat a little bit of fruit, but usually I have it with some protein, but I think like the people who are still eating a lot of fruit and eating even on the paleo diet doing that is because they're still having those sugar cravings.
Right.
And so that's like their way of satiating that. And so they could still be experiencing some of those highs and lows because that fruit, I mean, fruit's a lot better than eating a candy bar, but it's still.
That was my first learning curve.
Yeah.
Was to get to a bunch. I mean, how do I ease myself into this diet? It's a higher nutrition. And that was one of the things was I found fruit, but I found it like that was what I used in a way, but it was way easier when like Mark suggested, he's like, why don't you take a tablespoon of coconut butter and talk to me about how hungry you are?
Yeah, that helps a lot.
Instead of sugar sating my hunger, that fat in the coconut butter, that was it, man. 1 or 2 tablespoons of that, and I'm like, I am so good.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about, I mean, we could talk, like, just talking about, like, the difference between, like, the simple carbs and the fat, but, so for me, I find that I don't have a lot of cravings for sugar. And that hasn't happened overnight, but, and it comes and goes. Obviously a girl who's PMSing is going to have some more cravings than one who's not, but
I want to say at this point, I'm so glad I'm a guy.
Yeah. But so just to go back, I think that once your body, once you're not eating all of those refined carbohydrates, you're not having those insulin spikes where you're really retraining your body, like Mark Sisson is talking about, where you're eating largely like good quality proteins and good, like a fair amount of fat. I'm a big advocate of fat.
I know. I mean, it flipped me out, but I eat probably twice as much fat as I do protein, and way more fat than I eat any carbohydrates.
Totally. I mean, if you look at, there's different people have different ideas. Obviously, there's different people. It's not the same for everybody. You look at your metabolic type. There's different factors to see.
Tell me about that.
Because
I would always think that it is kind of the same for everybody, but how does it differ?
I'm not an expert on metabolic type. My website, Recipe RX, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but it basically, it gives you recipes and meal plans based upon your unique health profile. And one of the ways that we determine your unique health profile is by looking at your metabolic type. And the premise behind that is that, we all come from different lineage, different ancestors. So someone who is native to Japan has evolved eating like lots of fermented soy products, for example, lots of rice, maybe not very much meat, more like leafy greens, the bok choys. And so their body is, and not dairy. There's almost no dairy eaten in Japan, right? So their body is uniquely suited to eat, even if you're someone who's Japanese, who maybe has been living in America on an American diet for the last, 2 generations. It's still has been uniquely evolved to eat things like fermented soy and rice versus, let's say, an Eskimo who evolved eating lots of whale blubber. So maybe ate a lot more saturated fat, animal protein, which maybe the Japanese wouldn't eat. And so it's going back and looking at your lineage to educate and inform the way your body evolved to eat. And it gets sort of tough because especially in America, we're like this melting pot, right? Look, I don't even know exactly what I am.
Neither do I.
I'm like French and English and maybe a little bit of Greek or something. My mom tells me I'm either
Samoan or else a African slave heritage that is mixed with Scottish or
right,
something.
Yeah, so that's like that's all over the place, right? But there's several different resources you can find on my website, Recipe RX. We do have a metabolic type testing.
Is it a blood test? Is it
this test is actually it's a survey. I don't know if there's other people. I don't know if there's a blood test for metabolic typing, but it helps you to identify based upon your behaviors around food, your cravings, how you feel when you eat, all of these different things that you may not ever correlate.
I feel like all that stuff, I've had different cravings depending on how I trained myself to eat. Like I'm saying, like I don't have cravings for sugar at all after I eat a high fat. You know what I mean? But I used to all the time.
Yeah,
So
it's interesting.
That's a tricky thing to say. This is the science. Is you're this metabolic type because you know what I mean. I for myself, having been like a few different types of eaters in my lifetime, I'm like, I don't know that. I mean, I could be called different things at different times. Then.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I don't know exactly. I think the danger is you and I are. Do you know what your blood type is?
I think it's O.
Right. So. So the O type, I'm also an O. Okay. O is the most common.
Like the best then.
Yeah.
High five.
But I think at least 60% of people are O types. Is that right? Even more. So most people are O, and O is the paleo type.
Okay.
So that's like the classic caveman.
Right.
But there are other types, and I'm not saying that I don't explicitly just believe in the blood type thing, but it points to something.
I guess the thing is too is like, I mean, what this all speaks to is you've got to try it 100%, get in, and try it this way, and then go, okay, here's my experience with that, and then try it. Yeah. It'll take you a few months to really find out what the highest function is for yourself.
What really works for you.
But there's only a few different ways of really eating that have real borders on them that are like, this is this way of eating, this is the... And you can find that out simply enough.
Right, and there are things that are common to everyone. Like there's no blood type diet that's going to tell you that Twinkies are the best thing for you, right? Or the processed or refined foods are.
My friend Wade would differ that, but yeah,
But so for you and I, like we have found that our golden ticket is the paleo diet. that it really works for us, that it jives, it makes sense because we're O people. And I'm having a hard time sort of reconciling this for myself because I want to believe what's right for me is right for everybody on some level.
Right.
Like, and I am preaching paleo on the rooftop. Like, I love this. I feel so good. But there's that other part of me that knows that eating necessarily, just paleo isn't for everybody.
Right.
And so going back, like the metabolic typing, when you think about it, it really makes sense. And thankfully,
it's super interesting too. I mean, if you're European, you have a certain relationship with alcohol. If you're American Indian, you have a different relationship with alcohol.
Yeah.
If you're, you know what I mean? It's like, it's all these different kinds of things. If you're Scandinavian, different again. And it just, evolution, it does make sense what you're saying.
What's interesting is that cultures have survived very healthfully for thousands of years, eating lots of very different things.
Right.
I mean, you can't really preach a purely paleo diet for everybody on Earth when you look at the fact that tropical islanders have lived very healthfully on tropical fruit and, plantains and... But a different,
But there's not fruit in northern Michigan during it's seasonal.
Versus,
other places, yeah.
Versus in Japan, like you have people eating healthfully on all different kinds of macronutrient ratios all over the globe. But what we can see as a common denominator that has messed everyone up royally is the Industrial Revolution and processed foods. So we know
really farming.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where disease started, was farming. When we started living with livestock, that's where you got the advent of polio. A lot of illnesses came out of that proximity. All the wheat problems came out of that, and then most sociological problems came out of that, because people had a sense of scarcity. They're not moving towards where there's food anymore. It's the first time that the most adaptable creature on the planet, the human being, started adapting the environment towards his needs instead of adapting himself to the environment. I mean, it's why we have goddamn golf courses in Arizona, for Christ's sakes. You know what I mean? But that whole thing then of like, the bigger my farm gets, then I'm scared of what you have. I want to take that a little bit. I want to press over it instead of living in a real communal kind of nature, I think. And there wasn't a sense of cooperation that happened as soon as we started farm. I mean, the advent of farming is, you can look at that in a lot of different ways. A lot of people would say, well, we won't have iPhones without that. We wanted to set up cities. Maybe that's all true also, but it certainly had a lot of ill effects for us.
Yeah, you can take that like across the board. You can look at modern medicine, for example. You can say, oh, well, like, look at how modern medicine has given us longer lives. Yeah, sure. I mean, there's amazing surgeries, there's amazing technologies, there's amazing machines. So it's never black and white, right? We can see that technology has given us a lot, and it's also stripped us of a lot. So I think, what's really interesting to me is looking where you can balance the two, where you can take the best of technology, but then also like be really straight and say, look, this is where technology is like, and when you really look at the healthcare crisis and the Industrial Revolution and where things really started to go wrong, you do have to sort of blame technology in a lot of ways.
Sure.
But then you also have to then give technology some credit for the kinds of hip replacements you can do, the kinds of triple, quadruple bypass surgeries on your heart you can do. I mean, would we need a lot of those things if we were eating healthy to begin with?
Well,
maybe
yeah.
not,
I mean, we are where we are, and we can't stop that
right
in that way. But I mean, I think it goes back to being your own advocate.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great book on that whole thing, and pre-industrial revolution called Sex at Dawn that really speaks to a lot of that, which is, and it was really interesting because it speaks to a lot of the paleo ideals. It's, I don't know, it's interesting. And then, but when you think about what drives it, is like, it's all finance that drives it all. And then in that way, where we are now governmentally is a shadow of corporate greed, really.
Gosh, I hope that that's not true for all of us.
I'd say it's 100% true for Congress, for everybody.
Well,
though.
yeah, maybe.
You know what I mean? And we don't even, with the way technology is, we don't even need Congress anymore, which is crazy. We used to send a guy, like, we liked Fred, so we'll send him to Washington to go say what our piece is. But now it's like whoever pays Fred is who that is. It's not us.
Yeah.
I don't know. And with the internet, we don't need them anymore. But once these systems start, they don't go backwards. You know.
But
that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah,
I
that
suppose.
is, and I think, I mean, I don't want to get too much back into that, but I think that that the power that we really have as individuals, just in a little bit of what we talked about earlier, is that when you know what is right in your heart to do, like preaching the gospel of eating well to heal yourself.
Right.
You don't need permission to do that. And that's what there is for me to really hold on to. I choose not to focus on that. I know that it's there, and I'm going to make the difference. I'm going to be the change.
I think that's what we were talking about earlier. Like you can be the ripple coming out from you, and whatever the waves are that are on the horizon, it's kind of not our business in a way. It's like, how can I affect the greatest the greatest change here?
Yeah, totally. Wow, this conversation has gone so many places.
It's all over. I love it. Let's do it again. I think we should wrap it up and go to sleep, though.
Let's wrap it up. So
I want to know where to find you on the internet.
Okay, so recipierx.com.
And you're at RecipeRx.
At RecipeRx on Twitter, RecipeRx on Facebook. I would love if you're interested in coming to RecipeRx and learning more about PaleoGasm. You can do that right
Your
on
book.
the homepage.
Let's talk. We didn't talk about that at all. Holy shit. So she's got this great book out called PaleoGasm, which is fantastic, easy to read, easy to do recipes. That
beautiful pictures.
Even I can do. And you can get it on Amazon, Amazon.com. Just type in PaleoGasm. Is that the way to find it?
Yep, you can find it there. If you want the ebook, so if you want the physical copy, that's on Amazon. If you want an ebook, that's a bit cheaper. You can get, and it's actually really nicely done. You can get that at recipierx.com, my website. I get 100% of that.
That's the way to go then,
on
folks.
Amazon, I get about $3. But if you want the physical copy, by all means, go and get that. I want you to have it if what you need is a physical cookbook to do it. But I like the ebook personally. And yeah, it's 150 recipes that I made, and it's just the whole idea of, like, you can have your cake and eat it too.
Awesome.
You can eat delicious food that leaves you satiated. I was having a conversation with Tait's mom today, and she was really concerned about, if I eat paleo, am I still going to be able to eat almond croissants? Am I still going to be able to enjoy food if I eat this way? And I really appreciated her concerns, because I wrote this book to cater to people who wanted to feel good and eat really delicious food as well. So that's what PaleoGasm is all about. The food is delicious, but it also leaves you like really nourished and satisfied.
It was fantastic.
And and
clean. That's the thing. It's like it's clean, and it's those kind of. We had a little salad today. We had a little soup today. We just had a variety of things and a little dessert. That was just like nuts and coconut, and it's like, don't feel run down after it. Don't feel bad at all. Like I went and I did a badass workout afterwards with everybody, and the whole idea behind it for me is like, how can I eat in a way where I can function and I don't need that nap afterwards? And it's like,
totally.
I ate more than I normally do. It's this delicious, wonderful thing, and it's that kind of food where you feel nourished. You're like, oh, this is. And that's how food. This is building me.
Right. That's how food should make you feel. I think we've been programmed to think that it's normal to need a nap after your meal. And I'm here, like, anyone who's listening to this, if you need a nap after your meals, that is a warning sign from the gates of heaven that it's time to change your diet.
Absolutely.
Because you should eat a meal and feel energized afterwards.
Will you come back and talk to us after you go to Paleo FX? I want to hear about that whole experience and meeting all those madmen.
Yeah,
like I stay in LA most of the time, so maybe
we'll come to San Diego then. Yeah, we'll meet in San Diego.
Awesome.
And I hope that people. This was enjoyable for me. I hope that people get something out of listening to this.
Who cares? Who cares? Either they will or they won't. It's kind of, for me, I feel like it's that thing about, is paleo, you get these goddamn hippies that are talking about, is paleo sustainable? Is it sustainable to eat grass-fed, Tait? Well, I don't care, because most people don't care about themselves. You know what I mean? Is higher consciousness sustainable? Well, I don't know, but it's not going to happen, because there's people that are breeding themselves dumber and dumber all the time.
Well, higher consciousness is possible through each and every individual.
Absolutely, if you have a desire, but there's not a whole lot of folks that are looking towards that. I mean, to the point where, so it's that kind of thing for me. Is it sustainable? I don't know. But is it the best for me? Yes.
Yeah.
And is this the best for you? Absolutely, if you get to be listening to this.
Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure to be here with you. I
look forward to the next class, and I look forward to the next conversation.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Okay, bye-bye.
Peace.